Hello and welcome to Is How We Age a Choice, a special panel for this Globe Summit. My name is Kelly Horan. I'm the deputy editor of the Ideas section of the Boston Globe. And I'm joined today, very happily, by Claudia Kalb, a New York Times bestselling author whose most recent book is called Spark. It's How Genius Ignites from Child Prodigies to Late Bloomers. Claudia's work is really at the intersection of, I'd say, art and science and ideas, so just right for us today. Next to her is Bob Regan, the founder of Operation Song, and he's come all the way from Nashville to be with us today. I'm very, very grateful. Bob is a Grammy-nominated songwriter. And next to me is Martin Kaplan, a pediatric dentist who was the first dentist in the country to perform a very particular laser surgery to enable infants to latch if they were unable to. It's a big deal, and just like you would expect from a dentist, he also has a black belt in karate and is a tango dancer. So with that intro, welcome, and thank you all for being here. Claudia, I want to start with you. I reached out to you several months ago to write kind of the anchor piece for the whole package with the question of is how we age a choice. And knowing of your expertise in science and history and culture, I knew you would do a deep dive, and you very much did. I'm thinking a lot about your piece. And for me, one of the big takeaways was that as we age, it really isn't accomplishment that's the thing that fills us up. Can you tell me what you found?
Accomplishment is something that drives all of us, and it's a wonderful achievement in life. But when you look at the science of studies where scientists have looked at people over time, and Harvard has done a study looking at people over time, and one of the biggest findings was that with everything else, the most important thing is your relationships. The people that surround you, if you retire, the people that you replaced your colleagues with, new friends, and people you can convene with. So really, it's about those very basic things in life, people, and having a community.
And the science on it was really incredible to me. I mean, there's actually evidence and data to back it up. I mean, if you had 3 takeaways from your research, because I know you spoke with a lot of people, you read a lot of studies, we had a lot of back and forth. What for you were the 3 big takeaways from that research?
I think one is that mindset is so important. So if you have an ageist mindset, which means you think about aging in a negative way, it actually affects your physical health and the length of your life. I mean, that really was so remarkable that your outlook on life is so important. And then having a purpose, whether that's picking up a hobby after you retire or volunteering or communicating with a community that is something that you enjoy doing, where you feel like you're giving to somebody, someplace, to society. That's critical. And then that community. So those 3 things, having a really strong mindset that gives you a positive way of thinking about aging, surrounding yourself with community and friends, and having a purpose that makes you want to get up in the morning and do something and feel good about what you can offer.
Yeah. Well, and that makes me think of you, Bob. You know, you first submitted an essay to the Ideas section of the Globe a couple of years ago now, and I was impressed. You said to me, I'm not used to writing things that are longer than 3.5 minutes because you've spent your career as a songwriter, but here you were mining some really profound and touching sentiments for personal essays. Can you talk about how you decided to make that pivot and what it's meant to you at this stage of your career? I know you're still writing songs.
Well, thank you for the compliment. So I think what made me start writing some longer form things was, I mean, it sounds silly, but I would post things on social media, and some of them did not seem to want to fit in the short little bites that you have to think about. So I just kind of started expanding on some of those, and a lot of them were really not worthy of publication, which I did not send to you, of course. But a few of them I felt like were moving, and they moved me, and I hope they might move someone else. So it was just a matter of, again, when my commercial songwriting career was in the rear view, I felt like let's try some other things and see what happens.
And what has it been like for you? You've spent your career in Nashville. You've got certainly accomplishment to speak of. What fills you up? What's the thing that you turn to stay vital and engaged now?
Well, what was really important for me was when I retired from songwriting, I founded by accident a nonprofit called Operation Song, where we started pairing songwriters with veterans and their family members. And I was able to use my existing skill set to give back without having to reinvent the wheel or have me do a community garden, which would be a disaster. So I was doing volunteer and giving back, but I was doing it in an arena that I felt comfortable and accomplished. So that was, as Annie Lamott said, you know, it boils down to love and service. You know, we have something and people you love, and then to serve somebody, to quote Bob Dylan, as well as Annie Lamott. So that really filled me up, and that checked a big box for me.
Oh, that's great. And Martin, you know, I want you to tell us, you know, you are still practicing dentistry.
Yes.
You are still teaching and lecturing about this very specialized technique that you pioneered in the U.S. with this particular laser. But from my conversation with you, you were featured in our photo essay about reinvention artists in the Wisdom issue. You talked about how the office isn't the greatest place to meet people when you're working with mainly mothers and babies. But how did you make that transition for yourself? How did you push yourself out to try something like tango dancing? Not an obvious choice, I have to say.
Yeah, well, it wasn't. There's a whole bunch of dancing I'm doing with the Arthur Murray group, but I was trying to figure out what to do with myself. You know, I do practice martial arts too, and I need to have some other purpose to do something a little bit outside of myself. And I had a business coach that I was working with who gave me some ideas about trying to do some different things. And she said, why don't you try, you know, ballroom dancing? Because ballroom dancing may get you out to start to, you know, meet people, get more of a social group, because I'm working essentially with newborn babies and mothers, and, you know, you don't play where you work. At least I don't anyways. And so I said, maybe I'll give it a try, maybe I won't. And I finally, you know, broke down because she was really getting on my back a little bit. And so I went to this, you know, Arthur Murray in Boston, and I walked in because they had like an introductory session, and I stood against the wall with my arms folded and, you know, watching people looking down at my feet and saying, I've got 2 left feet, there's no way I can do this. Then I saw another couple dancing, and they seemed to be having a lot of fun. One of the instructors came up to me, introduced herself, asked me if I wanted to dance, and I said, I don't know if I can really dance, but she got me in like a little dance position, and I felt a little uncomfortable, and the easiest way out of it was for me to just say, yeah, I'll sign up for an introductory class, because then that could end that whole session, and 5.5 years later, I'm still here. And then I became really involved with the different types of dances, but I found that I liked tango the most because it was really emotional for me. And I know in the article we spoke about something where I lost a son to fentanyl overdose poisoning. And I wanted to try to do something for myself where I could do something for him, but more than just donating and you know, putting a plaque in his name or donating somewhere. So when I'm dancing, I really feel an emotion, and I know the different types of musics that he likes. So I worked with some of the instructors, and we developed we found some actually ballroom dance sort of music to work with that. And, you know, I'm playing Nirvana and Metallica with the cello, and I'm able to do all this. And when I'm dancing, I'm thinking for him, and I'm really getting involved in all of that.
Yeah.
And it helps. Plus, the social life has been great. I see people from 20 years old to 80 years old, and maybe someone's older, but they don't admit it because everybody looks like they're in shape, you know, and everybody's really, really friendly. It's a really nice, friendly group, and we need that type of stuff.
I'm wondering, and any of you can answer this question, but what has most surprised you about getting older? Whether it's a positive thing or a negative thing, what's something that you just weren't really prepared? I can give you my list, but but I'll let you go.
Well, I would just say from my reporting and my experience that I think the mindset issue is so important, because I think we often think of aging as happening to us.
Right.
And I think when you are sort of intentional about what you do as you age, whether that's taking care of your health or you know, doing what these guys are doing, which is enlarging your community and being part of an important venture, you do feel like you are at a point where your expertise has grown through your career and you have something to offer, and you can feel more comfortable in your own skin in a way as you age. And I think, but I think being intentional and taking the reins of your own aging process is critical. And I think a lot of people don't realize they can do that, even though it sounds so simple.
Yeah, you kind of think, well, it's just going to happen, and I
Yeah.
just have to submit.
Right.
But
Exactly.
not so.
Exactly.
Bob, it looks like you want to say something.
I think another, maybe not a surprise, but when you're younger and you see an old person, you look at them and you think that person is old, and they assume they're old, and they live like an old person. But once you start reaching an older age, you don't think of yourself the same way the mirror does. So I still have this disconnect between the way society views me and the way I view myself. And I'm slowly doing things to try to close that gap. Not completely, but that was interesting again.
I think there is an invisibility thing that happens, and I'm not sure at what age it begins. But I spent a lot of time with my dad this summer, who had some health issues. And we were leaving a Red Sox game one night, and we had a long walk back to the car, because I know where the free parking is, but it was a very long walk back. And there were so many moments when it appeared to be invisible to the young people walking toward him, to the point where he was almost jostled. And it speaks to one of the reasons I wanted to do the wisdom issue, why I wanted to put it together. A year ago in Globe Ideas, we put together something called Teens Speak, where we gave voice to young people from all across the country, because we wanted to say, well, young people do want to talk about it. And coming out of that, I thought, well, who else don't we hear enough from? And whose voices might we not count as much? And so it's just been really gratifying to work with each of you, to work with all of the contributors to this issue, and to hear from readers about feeling seen and heard and having their stories amplified. I'm just wondering, and maybe Martin, you want to take this one, because you're still thriving in your career. Do you see a diving off point where your career ends and something else begins, or is it melded for you? Because as we read in Claudia's piece, it's not about retiring and drifting off. It's about staking a new claim on an interest.
Well, I'm still confused about what I want to do with my life. I've always been pretty active, and then in 2003, I got involved with lasers. So I wanted to challenge myself for that. Then about 10 years ago, I helped develop this class at the New England Medical Center for the procedures we were just talking about. And I always wanted to stay active and involved in things. So I got more involved in karate. The dance stuff was helping me a lot too. But in dance, I found a lot of people telling me, when are you going to retire? And these are a lot of people that retired because they didn't like their jobs and they didn't like what they were doing. So I enjoy dancing. I enjoy martial arts. I enjoy theater and some other things. Plus, I really enjoy what I'm doing, and I get a lot of positive feedback from what I'm doing. And it's the challenge is spreading all the news positively for people so they can, get involved in this. And I never think that I'm too old to do anything. As far as I'm concerned, when I can't pick up, a handpiece or a laser and do work, then I can't. If my hands are shaking at something else, then I'll still do something else, but it just won't be that job.
Right.
But that's why I like teaching too, because I keep on, passing information along, and there's a lot of challenges still involved with all this stuff, but it's important.
I want to say that for as gratifying as it is that so many readers have connected with this material, I wish more young people, I want younger people to read this too, and it speaks to a question that we just got from a viewer. Thank you for that, which is, how can we start to change the way society views older adults? That's a really big question.
Well, I would say just, Kelly, by doing this series and introducing people through all the first-person stories that you included in the section, you're making older people visible. And I think there needs to be more connection. I think any kind of effort out there, and there are some, where they're connecting older populations with school kids, for example, so that they understand that, just like Bob was saying, when you don't imagine yourself the age you are after a certain point.
No.
You always feel like the kid. And so I think the exposure is important. Meeting older people, younger people, meeting them.
Yeah, I've read a lot about how beneficial it is for older people and younger people, to work together, to play together, just to have that experience together, because it energizes both, and it gives, I think, younger people a longer view of what life can be, and I think that's lovely. Bob, it looks like you want to say something.
Well, for me, I spent my career in the music business where youth and beauty are the coin of the realm. So I remember there were guys, I remember a friend of mine turned 50 and he goes, "You cannot tell anybody I'm 50. Now I'm looking back, 50 is a juvenile. But as far as making young people aware, I think it's a worthy goal and a noble thought. But when you're youthful, and here's the thing, you are pretty much the same version of yourself from maybe your mid-20s up until you're 60, 65 and beyond, when you still kind of look the same energy level, and then you sort of enter into that period of invisibility. And I don't know I'm very happy to be doing this, and if this can help younger people, look at someone older and say, wait a minute, they're not that much different than me. They still have hopes, have dreams, aspirations, energy to do new things. And I like what you said about, I was uncomfortable. Do something that makes you feel uncomfortable.
Oh yeah, there's a big paradigm shift on that.
Yeah. So old people are smarter than you think they are. They know more. But I'm not here to beat you over the head and say go out and engage with old people, because you're not going to. But I wish you would.
There is an issue with choosing how we age that we should talk about, which is that for each of us, we don't know what the future holds. We don't know what medical crises might come. We don't know what accidents might come. But also, there's a lot of privilege in being able to choose how we age. And so I want to talk about, what can we do as a society, as individuals, for those who don't have the luxury of, affording a tango lesson or striking out and doing something brand new. I don't feel like there are many supports for older people in our society who maybe don't have the means to cross that divide and say, well, I'm going to do this, because they might still have to have a job or two to just get by. How do we make up for that?
From my reporting, I found that some of that support can come through community centers,
right,
or through religious organizations, if you belong to a synagogue or a church or someplace that can help you with a community, that other people might be around who can give you ideas and provide resources. But that does take also funding these community centers, giving them the means to offer experiences to people, classes that might introduce them to dancing or whatever, songwriting. You have to have the money. And so that's a whole big conversation about, do we have enough money to support the local programs that can help people who are less privileged?
Years ago, I'm sorry.
I was going to say, I think volunteering is really important.
Yeah.
And you could, and there are a lot of apps out there now too, and you can volunteer or run something, and you can have it limited to a certain group, and you start meeting more people. Like, I never in a million years would have thought I'd be dancing with 20 to 80-year-old people and having fun, and the social aspect is really important, especially after we all went through COVID and everything else, and all the social isolation going on, and people are spending, I think, an awful lot of time on the internet, and it's impersonal, and this other stuff is very personal. We were talking before about, you getting back to painting and music and stuff, and I used to paint a long time ago, and there's other things that you can cultivate as you go. I'm never going to play guitar like him.
No. Well, you mentioned one epidemic, COVID, but the other one, of course, is loneliness. And I think it plagues across generations, but particularly older people. Claudia, maybe in your work you've come across solutions or...
It is been recognized as a public health epidemic, and it's one of those kind of amorphous things. It's not something you can measure with a thermometer, but it's out there. Yeah. And so many people are struggling to find how to live as older people if there is a health crisis. And a lot of people live at home, and they want to stay at home, and so loneliness is a big factor. There are a lot of interesting local neighborhood organizations where seniors help seniors, or there's neighborhood volunteers who come. And so you can find resources, but I think it's a really hard one to address, and it requires a lot of forward thinking about, getting people together. If they can't go out, having people visit them, getting them to groups, rides to community centers, but it is a big one. It's very important.
Just on the individual level, I've found that, loneliness and just reaching out to people, I will have any number of acquaintances, and some closer than others, and I maybe will go a long time without talking to somebody, and I think Now they don't want to hear from me. Then I'll pick up the phone and call them out of the blue, and they go, "Oh man, I'm so glad you called me." So it's important to be proactive because people probably want to hear from you more than you think they do. So I put it on myself to be try to be the guy that picks up the phone.
That's a great point.
And people on the other end want to be reached out to, but maybe they don't have the the resources or the oomph. They're thinking about Bob. Bob doesn't want to hear from me.
Yeah.
And often I don't. But try me.
Yeah, you got to meet the effort. Well, I learned the loneliness thing came to me too, because in this past January, I was heading to dance class, walked out of the parking lot, slipped and fell on ice, tore a ligament, tore actually a tendon in my left knee, had surgery 5 days later, and I had to be home for 3 months with straight leg brace. And I realized there's no way I can retire. I mean, I was going crazy at home. I was calling people, and then I felt like I was burdening them too, but I just knew I had to stay more active. And as soon as I could, I started slowly getting back to dance, even martial arts. As soon as my leg could bend enough and I could step on the laser pedal, I went back to work. But it's all individual too. Mm-hmm. And I'm also realizing, I isolated myself from a lot of people, and there's a lot of people that would call me, or I'd call them periodically. I make sure I get in touch with them more often, and people do want to hear from you.
Yeah.
What is the old slogan, reach out and touch someone,
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
The days before we just texted everything.
Yeah.
Well, this is a question from a viewer, and it's also one that I wanted to get to, which is sort of what's one of the good parts of growing old? What's one of your favorite aspects of reaching a wise place?
Okay.
I mean, for me, I think it's just feeling like you can, a little bit of less second guessing, a little bit of being able to feel like you've gained some wisdom over the years, and the most important thing is trying to share that, I think. So I feel like that's a good place to be in, where you feel like all the work you've put into your earlier decades of work kind of come to some kind of fruition. You feel.
And is there something that you are looking forward to doing later? I mean, do you have this vision for yourself going forward?
Yeah, I mean, I was telling Martin about some of my early childhood passions that I'd love to get back to, including watercolor painting and piano. Those are things in the arts that I loved and haven't quite had enough time for in my career.
I think just the contentment factor, and I've read about this, that I'm actually more content than I would have thought I would be. Because for a lot of my career, I was just driven. I had to do more. I had to prove myself. I had to keep climbing my ambition. And that kind of receded a little bit, and it just kind of made room for a little satisfaction, a job well done or a job well enough done. So I do feel more contentment and more comfortable in my skin than I might have thought, and certainly than I was in my 20s and 30s.
Yeah, that's really great to hear.
I know one thing, I'm less self-conscious now. I don't worry about, maybe making a fool out of myself. I'll take this out to prove it.
I'll second that.
Exhibit A.
This is Exhibit A. This is what I told you, my Swarovski crystal dance shirt, that if anybody ever thought I would wear a Swarovski crystal dance shirt, and do a solo dance in front of 300 or 400 people years ago, my hands still shake and I get nervous, but I don't really care because it's fun. And why the heck not?
I love that.
And I know a lot of friends of mine that, from high school that have passed away, and who really cares if they embarrass themselves in something? Just go out and have a lot of fun, and do the best you can. And you got to challenge yourself, and don't worry, nobody's going to make fun of you. And if they do, you don't want those people.
That's true. That's true. I mean, I have creative dreams, and I have a good friend who said, I said, I think I'm too old to do this. And she said, well, you're the same age that you would have been if you'd done it already. So just get on and do it. And I think that that's one of the things that is important to remember is that, we are who we are inside, as Bob, you were saying. Maybe the mirror doesn't reflect back who we feel like we are, but these aspirations, these creative impulses, these desires and urges, they stay with us. And I think it's like a lifeblood. It's like a pulse. It's vital to keep going. As is a sense of humor, I think. And Bob, you wrote such a charming and funny piece for the Wisdom issue about an interaction you had at a grocery store. Do you want to tell us about that?
Well, it was just, I noticed a few years back, people started referring to me as young man. And at first I would bristle and go, who the hell are you calling young man? And then I kind of stopped and thought about it, and it was, I should not take that as an insult. That people are, they're not necessarily infantilizing me. I just think they're trying to engage me at where I'm at. So I'm trying to be a little more gracious when people call me young man or say, "Oh, Bob, you're 75 years young." My hackles go up a little bit. Calm down. So people mean well, and I would like to accept those little, potential condescensions as for what they are. Just accept them graciously.
Yeah, I
And
think.
be glad I'm old enough to be able to accept those. If I'd have passed away 20 years ago, guess what? Nobody'd be saying anything to me.
It's good to, in all phases of life, to have a sense of humor, but I think that you're the grace that you're affording people who might not realize. I mean, they'll realize it someday when they get there, and they're, I've started to get the young lady. You wrote a song. I wish you'd play a little bit of it. The title is Punk. And we do link to it if you see Bob Regan's piece in the Wisdom issue. We do link to the YouTube video of the song. I'd love to hear just a little bit of it because the lyrics are terrific.
Excuse me for clearing my throat. It's and I did not mention I was recently diagnosed with Parkinson's, so my guitar playing has eroded somewhat, but I can still do something. This is called Punk, and this has one slightly profane word, but I think we can all live with it. Old man walking with an old dog, carrying a little green bag of dog shit. Young man speeding in a jacked up Dodge, in a hurry to get someplace like CrossFit. Old man steps into the crosswalk. Young man, he lays on the horn. Old man stops, he winds up. That bag of shit goes airborne. And he yells, "Punk, you don't know jack. Wherever it is you think you're going, I've been there and back. Yeah, punk, I tell you what, if I was a younger man, I damn sure would have whooped your butt. You might wake up one day, arthritis, hair gone gray, old and in somebody's way. Hey, punk, if you're lucky, really lucky, you might live to be old as me, if you're lucky.
I really love that.
Yeah, if you want to hear the rest of the song, it's on the Boston Globe. There's a link. Or you can also look me up. Little shameless self-promotion, Bob Regan, all streaming platforms.
It's just great. And the luck piece, it's true. It's what I think. If we're lucky, someday we'll be old. And that's really, it's better than the alternative, isn't it?
If you're lucky, someday somebody will be calling you young man. Saying, oh, look at you, 80 years young.
Final thoughts in the little bit of time we have left from any of you.
Just picking up on the luck, I think that we need to allow ourselves for these experiences. Give yourself time to do things and let go and allow luck to come into your life, because it can come spontaneously, and as you age, whenever in your life, luck can kind of float in and change you, and so be open, really be open to new experiences.
I like that a lot.
There's a beautiful Patti Loveless song, I can't think of the name of it, but one of the lines is something along, what makes you old is when hope is outweighed by regret. Oh. So you've got to have hope. Mm-hmm. We all have regrets. We all have things we wish we could do. We can't redo anything. We can still have hopes, and we can mend fences in the past, and we can try to live up to our hopes for the future.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, I think you have to enjoy yourself, and you really want to just try to give back when you can. The dance people tease me all the time because I'm so serious. I enjoy dancing, but they're going like this to me to make sure that I smile. And I'm having a lot of fun. You got to have fun. You have to have some purpose in life, and it's really important. If you don't have purpose like the people that I spoke to that retired, they didn't enjoy their job, but now they like dance. They found something else to do.
Yeah.
Find something else to do, even if you just work in an area you don't enjoy. Find something. You have to have some kind of passion to move yourself forward.
So community, curiosity, purpose, sense of humor, all the essential ingredients for aging well. Thank you, Claudia, Bob, and Martin for joining us, and thank you for tuning in.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Yeah.